Hi, welcome to Android, and today we are going to discuss about a very important concept in Android that is called data storage. So what it means is that in Android, what are the various mechanisms to store data and how to use them effectively and learn about how to use them in first place. So Android provides a various mechanism of storing data, and we'll just see that how each one of them works. Now let us see where we are in terms of our traveler assistant application. So far we are done with basics of uh, this one. We have done this, we have done this, we have done this, we have completed this part, we have completed intent sample. Today our job is to complete, in this session we'll complete about preference, and we'll also try to connect this database and this one. So first we'll take care of the preference and then we'll take care of the database. So that is the approach we are going to have. Now in the preference what we are going to do is that there are a few things like file handling, preference, file and all. So we'll create a new preference activity. We'll create a layout. We'll add this activity in manifest file. We'll put the logic in preference activity class to save our user preferences and everything. But before I get into this preference, why don't we talk a little bit about, in general, what are the various mechanisms of database. So Android provides several options for you to save persistent application data. The solution you choose depends on your specific needs, such as whether the data should be private to your application or accessible to other application, and how much space your data requires, what kind of data it is, and all those factors. So let us see that the big picture of Android data storage. The big picture of Android data storage is that, in general, Android provides you 4 different mechanisms to store the data. And this is my categorization of storing the data in 4 different ways. And it is not that Android documentation talks about this, but this is easier to understand if I do it like this. But that is my categorization. One of them is called shared preferences. The next one is called internal storage, external storage, and SQLite database. Now, what is the difference between all of these three? We will understand the difference between each one of them very soon. So let us understand the difference between each one of them one by one. Shared preferences. Shared preferences is very simple. It is used for saving the preferences which can be shared across all the screens of your application. So let us assume you have used the Eclipse or any other software, and there is a preferences or options menu where you go and change something, and that preference or options get applicable to all the screens in your application. So like Eclipse has a preferences screen. In preferences you store some data, and next time when you run the Eclipse, all those preferences which you have set is applicable and used. So that is the whole purpose of this shared preferences concept. It is shared within your application itself among various windows and services wherever you want to do it. Now how does it work? So shared preferences basically only uses primitive data type you can store. What kind of a data you can store? Primitive data type. So this is primitive data type you can store. What is else? It is stored in an XML file. What it is stored as a key value pair. Key value pair. So all the preferences are stored as a key value pair, and only thing you can store is a primitive data. You cannot store a serialized data or anything other, any other thing. And other option is that, other point what we need to understand about shared preferences is that the amount of data is small. So basically it is used for small data. And last but important point is that it is shared among all other component of application. Among various components, like you have 10 activities, 10 services, all of them can read and write to the same shared preference file. So that is the purpose of shared preferences. Now what we'll do is that let us assume that you develop an application and you want to tell the user that, hey, what kind of a color you want to see in the whole application. Now that color he can select and set, and then later next time when he run, that application looks like of that color. Or another example of a preference could be that what kind of a greeting he want to see in the application. So he can go and set, okay, every time the application launches, he should say, hello sir, how are you? Or every time the application launches, he say, hi, how are you? So that kind of a preferences you can set, which will get stored in an XML file, and then you can load it from there and use it in the complete application. So that is the concept of shared preferences. Now what is internal storage? Internal storage is nothing but just a generic way of storing anything in a file. So what it means is that you can store anything in a file. It means that you can store the large data, no structure, you can store in whatever way you want, no structure or no key value pair thing. If you want to just dump some paragraph, you can store it. If you want to dump a serialized form of a object which is serialized and became a long string, you can store it that. Whatever you want to store, you can pretty much store anything in a file. And most important part is the internal storage is kind of a private storage device which is very much private to that application. So when an application get uninstalled, all those get uninstalled as well. Now what is external storage? Again same thing, store anything in a file, but this is stored in the SD card of your phone. So if the data is even larger than what you want in internal storage, like lot of images, lot of media files, audio files, and all of those things, or the data has a huge database of something, or text format, large text format, in that case you can store it in a SD card, because generally SD card has a much larger size than internal storage system. The only problem happens here is that it is not very secure. So be very careful in storing inside SD card. Not very secure. That is one point. Second point is that sometimes the SD card might be detached from the phone. Some another SD card somebody might put it, and in that case the data might be lost. But other than that, in terms of what you can store, it is pretty much same like internal storage. So that is what we call it, external storage. And then the last one and the most important one is called database, and we'll talk about this. Is basically a relational database. And it is used for storing data in a table in rows and columns. So basically this is used for structured data storage. In other words, when you have a data, if you want to write a database application, then you will use this SQLite database to store the data. So there are 4 different mechanisms: shared preferences, internal storage, external storage, and SQLite database. Now what we are going to do is that we are going to write some sample code for this one, and we'll see that how it works. And then we'll briefly touch this one, and then we'll develop a full-blown application for SQLite database. So that is the approach we are going to talk about when data storage mechanism for Android comes in the picture. Now let us start with the shared preferences. What does shared preferences means and how we go about it?